Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on Yona of the Dawn, Volume 17. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm really excited for two reasons. One, because the last volume was really, really good, and I've been excited to read this volume, but also because the next volume after this is Volume 18, and I have been told that Volume 18 starts with the OVAs. So I'm like, okay, so next volume we are going to watch, there's 2 more OVAs with Yona of the Dawn. We're going to watch them in the next volume. I'm really freaking excited. I can't wait, but we've got to get through volume 17 first. So that's what we're going to do this evening. So I'm really, really excited. But yeah, I have been told through Discord that for this volume and the next several volumes, I need to not read the chapter titles. I'm like, okay. I've been reading the chapter titles, and honestly, for the most part, they've not been spoilery, but like with the last volume, with volume 16, there were a couple little hints, like he was a good friend, like, oh, well, that's probably about Soo-won, right? And so they were kind of like little hinting at what was going on. I was like, oh, okay. So there was that, but if y'all tell me not to read the chapter titles, I'm not going to read them. So when we go back through and rediscuss, then we'll read them, and that'll be there. So I'm really excited. Jaeha's on the cover of this one. Hak was on the cover of the last one. So I'm like, are we going to go through our dragons? I don't know. But I don't want to be spoiled. I don't want any hints or clues of what's to come. I just want to read them. And then after the fact, we can talk about it and be like, oh my gosh, did you expect this? No, probably not. So that's what we're going to go do with. But we're going to watch, we're going to read volume 17. And then next week, we'll have the OVAs. And probably what I'll do is start with the OVAs. And then we'll read the manga volume afterwards. I know I've got my notes here that volume 18 starts at chapter 101 and covers the rest of the volume. So that'll be interesting. But we'll cross that bridge. We'll talk about it at the end of this volume here before moving forward. But yeah, I'm ready to go, y'all. I'm excited. So let's not waste any more time, shall we? I'm excited to see what all we come to find with our crew here. Last volume was pretty angsty, I'm not gonna lie. I had to take a good solid little break from Yona of the Dawn before moving on, but I'm ready to get back into it with volume 17. So we're gonna start that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's start this. Oh my god. So, this volume, cat's out of the bag. Zeno's immortal, bitches. I'm so glad y'all didn't spoil it for me, and I'm really glad. But I'd been suspecting the last couple volumes. I'm like, okay, he seems wise beyond his years. He seems older. He seems like he's an old soul. Is he the original yellow dragon, and is he immortal? Yes, bitches is immortal. I'm like, oh my god. So, oh my gosh, what this... So I'm assuming we just got Jaeha's background. We've had Ao's backstory. We've had Kija's backstory. So guess whose backstory is left? The yellow dragon, Zeno. As we find out that he can't be killed. Okay. Oh my gosh, this volume was just... it was so good. It was so good. We're just going to go through this, but... So much happening. I think from here on, I'm glad that you all... I don't feel like the chapter titles were spoilery in this volume, but I feel like, especially now that we know stuff about Zeno, and we know that we're going to be getting backstory on him in the future, I can't imagine what the OVAs are about. It's so weird, because I get that I'm almost like, why didn't you just do a season 2? Honestly, why didn't we just do a season 2? Because I'm sure at this point, if we're looking at volumes 1 through 8 or 1 through 9 were covering, volumes 1 through 8 covered season 1, and that would lead up to this volume. So I guess if they had done a season 2, it would have covered up through volume 16, which they could have done a few OVAs for like the bonus chapters, and then just covered, and then had maybe, I could see that this chapter here being like this, and the following chapters being like the season finale, maybe, of like finding out Zeno is immortal. Like, that would be cool. So that's so sad that they just didn't. Okay. God, there's so much that happens in this. I really wish that they'd do a season 2 of the anime. I really wish that they would. But there's a lot going on in this chapter. So I think for the next couple volumes, I'm not going to look at the chapter pages. I liked going in and not knowing the chapter titles. That was a great suggestion. So thank you all on Discord for suggesting that. That was great. But yeah, so let's go through this volume. God, just getting into the dragons. I love the dragons whenever they have conversations with themselves. It's like, it's funny because Zeno is the original yellow dragon, I'm pretty sure, because he's immortal. But I feel like even though Kija, Sheena, and Jeha are like in their early 20s, they have this like, it's the dragon blood that makes them feel like they're like lived in souls, like they've always known each other for like centuries, which it's the dragon blood doing that. But I love their conversations with one another. It's so good as they've come to like get to know each other. So freaking good. But yeah, so I didn't read the mangaka notes, so we'll have to go back through that as we go. But my editor asked me to do some art for magazine supplement. Colors, please make it full color. Size, 300 millimeters by 80 millimeters. Actual size, 158 millimeters by 40 millimeters. Either vertical or horizontal is fine. Theme, Pew flashcards with binder ring. The concept is that Pew is stuffing her cheek pouches with intention. Please depict Pew with a very full cheeks. You can show her from the front or the side. So about the size of these Pew flashcards. If it's 300 by 800 millimeters, either her cheeks or her torso will all be stretched out. Is that all right? Are they sure about this? Vertical or horizontal is fine? Really? This way, her cheeks are definitely bulging. If I make her torso long, then there's no room for her full cheeks. And how is showing her from the side okay? From that angle, making her cheeks look full is so hard. She just looks like a fat dad. She is longer from the side. She looks like something that doesn't actually exist. So I emailed my editor to ask about the proposed size. On my smartphone, it said those dimensions are for flashcards that seem awfully long. You don't want Pew with stretched out torso or cheeks pouches that stretch sideways, do you? The response was, I think she'd look cute with stretched out torso or cheek pouches. That's impossible. Don't you see the problem here? Have you actually envisioned it? Her torso would be so long. Maybe I'll treat it like letter paper. What a bizarre size for flashcards. The next day, sorry, I had the wrong size. It was 4 by 6 centimeters. I thought so. I like that because it shows like an artist's vision. It shows that Kusanagi is like thinking about things in the composition and construction of it. And it's like, if you don't have an eye for it, she's like, you don't understand. This is going to look weird. We can't do this. That's funny. So yeah, so war. We're going to talk about Soo-won in this. Yes, but they're going back, and we get a call back to the Udo mines, back from the anime, like episode 15 in the anime when Soo-won first came to Guntei, to the Earth Tribe. We get a tie back to the Udo mines, tying that all back together and showing how things are picking up and being prosperous, and they established they were trading back and forth with the Kai Empire. So it's a nice callback to that. And it's nice because it means more people's around. They're able to blend in. Everything's fine. And then we meet Kalgan. And at first, I honestly thought Kalgan was like Hawk at first. I was like, why is Hawk stealing food and being so out of character? But no. This kid just happens to look kind of like Hawk. I will say, Kusanagi's artwork in this volume, it's showing more like refined line work. The line work is different. It's you can tell that she's slowly getting, her style is kind of changing a little bit. It's noticeable, but it's still really good. But she's using a lot more thicker lines in this volume, and a lot more like ink and black, so that's cool. But yeah, and Yona just at this point, Yona's like just flicking birds out of the sky, like you do. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's great. I'm like, girl, she's amazing. And of course this kid is instantly smitten. And I love the panel where they're like, where he's like, you're such a cool woman. And you have like Hawk, Kija, and Jeha, and Zeno, and all of them being so proud. They're like, isn't she? And then he's like, I like you, become my wife. And then Zeno and Sheena look the same, but Hawk, Kija, and Jeha are like, no. So great. And the sad thing is, the crazy thing is, he's 13, which you think, oh, you're too young to marry Yona, even if it's legal in your village, which is creepy. But Yona's 16, so she's only 3 years older than him. But it's so weird, the spectrum. It's so insane to see the difference 3 years on either side can make. You have 3 years younger at 13, and he's so immature. 3 years older, and you have Sheena. So it's like, it's so wild, right? But I love that Yoon and Kija are like heads of the squad. And I love that Jaeha is like, come on, Hak, this little kid's gonna steal your princess. And Hak's like, I hate you. Because he kind of looks like Hak, right? Right? Oh, it's great. But then it turns out this kid really doesn't love Yuna specifically. He just is flirty with all girls and thinks that Yuna's a girl. So there you go. All right. This is Mizuo Kasunagi. We're on volume 17 and starting a new part of the journey. Thanks to all who have stuck with me this far. Thanks to the anime, new people have come to the manga, and I've been able to create all sorts of merchandise and tie-in things. I'm truly blessed. The anime is marvelous, so if you haven't seen it yet or can't watch it in your own area, please check it out if and when you get a chance. But I have to say, after looking back at my older work, I'm embarrassed to think of the animators looking at my less polished drawings, and the voice actors are reading my dialogue, abbreviated. So she's like, oh, my works. So yeah, you can definitely tell her art style is getting more polished and refined. She's found like a groove of how she wants to draw. And so she's embarrassed of her older drawings. Oh man, but I like her artwork from the start. So, but yeah, so we get this idea this boy basically did a Princess Jasmine and came over to investigate Quokka and see it. And I like that it's not because they necessarily aren't allowed to go, but because his family were once citizens of Quokka and he wants to see if it's as good as they say, right? And luckily for him, he has a really good experience and he comes across Yona and the Happy Hungry Bunch and they are kind to him. And so he's like, oh yeah, you guys are fine. And so, of course, Sheena, in the midst of all this, they find out that Soo-won's army is getting closer, right? Interesting. And so I love that Hak and Yoon are like, she will not be your bride, as they're like going across and trying to figure out what to do. But yeah, I love Hak gets excited. He gets happy teasing Jaeha and Yona sees him smile and she's staring at him. And that's when Kalgan's like, you like him, don't you? Everybody knows except Yona and Hak. Yona and Hak are just in denial. They won't tell each other, but everybody knows at this point. Even this 13-year-old kid has figured it out. Like, come on. And he's like, you keep gazing at him. And he's like, yeah, I knew it. He's like, I can read girls pretty easy. And I like Hawk's like, she's like, Hak is mean and unlikable. And he's like, well, excuse me, princess. I love it. I love that. And I love that he's like, the kid, Kalgan's like, oh, she's been staring at you. And Hawk's like, did you need something? And she's like, I love it, right? And he's like, you should have told me sooner. He's like, I wouldn't have teased you if I knew you liked somebody. And Yona's like, oh my God. And I love the Hawk's like trying to figure out like, what's going on, Yona? And she's like, leave me alone. And she's like, was I really staring at him that intently? Mm-hmm. And of course she doesn't get a lot of sleep because of it. So we get our first red flag that this kid was sick, right? He said I'm kind of beat up against the tree. So he was sick. And I'm sure because it's from the Kai Empire, him getting sick is not, he's giving Kija and Jaeha a bug that they don't have immunity to. And we get a lot of like little lore nuggets dropped here by old Zeno, by our yellow dragon, saying that the further they get away from Hiryu Palace, the more the weaker they can get. It's like, okay. And they don't have good disease resistance. It's like, well, that's good to know. Okay. And so he just went to visit Quokka. And then they take him back to his village. Of course, after Kija faints. I'm really glad that the village was instantly okay with them. Because when they said, oh, I'm sure my parents will welcome you, I thought it was going to be this big ordeal. I thought the parents were like going to start a ruckus, like try to turn them into the Kai Empire. I thought it was going to be this big ordeal. And it really wasn't. And I'm glad. I'm like, oh, thank goodness. He didn't have to go through that drama, right? Didn't have to worry about that. But, okay. And then I like the dad sees that Kija's sick and like zooms in on him and he's like, it's fine. Like they're compassionate people, right? Even if they're from the other side, technically. On the page to the right, Jaeha's carrying Kija instead of Sheena because Sheena's fur would get in the way, right? No, Sheena's carrying Kalgan and Hak is carrying his glaive. Wouldn't it be easier to carry Kija with his glaive? Oh. Carrying Kija with his glaive? And it shows like her assistants being like, we have to draw this. That's great. So yeah, so they figure out that he's got a fever and something's wrong, and the dad comes in, and the dad makes this comment about how it doesn't matter what part they're from. And so they go through this whole thing, and that's going to be brought up with Soo-won again, right? It's going to be brought back up again. But the dad establishes, old Amoy, he says, he's like, back when Junam ruled Koka, we were part of his kingdom. But before that, we were part of Kai. So he's like, it's just gone back and forth for centuries. Like, we're just in this area where our village stays the same, but whoever is whatever territory we are in just rotates back and forth. He's like, so we're used to it. So we just go about our business, try to survive and do the best we can, and we'll be whatever part of whatever kingdom claims us. That's interesting. But then the boy is like, but he's like, you keep looking across the river like you want to go back and see your friends. And he's like, just forget about it, right? And Yona just watching the whole time. And then we cut back to them worrying about war and saying, well, we'll just deal with it and hunker down like we always have. We cut from that back to old Soo-won, and Soo-won making preparations. And so they'd sent that little note up to the Kai Empire saying that we're going to take this village back. And the Kai Empire was like, no, we're not even bothering with you right now. We have our own business. And that's all Soo-won needed to hear, right? Soo-won's like, okay. Because honestly, they just came in and just took it by force. They didn't even have to try, really. Because they knew that because of the battle that the Southern Kai Empire has been having with the Northern Kai tribes, that their forces were going to be weakened. If they were going to strike, now was the time. And like Hawk said, they could use the water tribe thing as an excuse. Funny that. But yeah, so they show out, everybody's set up for the battle. Everybody's like positioned to be watching over each part of the kingdom to make sure nothing gets out of whack during this battle. Nobody is gonna, so basically the water tribe and wind tribe are defending the other areas while they're at battle. Okay. But then there's this, right? So there's this whole thing, like up until this point in the story, the last several volumes have established that Yona and Soo-won were both fighting to protect Koka. And that's how they were similar, right? This volume starts to take that tree, like we're both part of the same tree, we're both defending Koka, and it starts to branch Yona and Soo-won in different directions. Because Soo-won, Yona is realizing like this whole thing about war is stupid, which we'll talk about. But with Soo-won, he says, before King Il's ascension, the area was ruled by my father, Yuhan. No matter what anyone says, Koka will reclaim what belongs to it by right. So that's the thing, right? Soo-won's like, my dad ruled this place, so we're going to take back what was his. So there's a little bit of a pride in this, a little bit. It's not just a political decision, it's personal. It's not just politics for Soo-won, this is personal. He's like, because I'm like, why do you care about this random village that's in the Kai Empire? You've already got Iza grain to give to the Fire Tribe. Why do you care? This village doesn't seem to have anything to offer to you to help the Fire Tribe or to help Koka, so why take it back? Because his father once had control of it. And it's like a personal pride thing. He wants to take back his father's land. But he says what was Koka's by right. The dad, Kalgan's dad, just said in the last chapter, he's like, well, before Junam and Yuhan had it, it was the Kai empires, and it's gone back and forth. So it's never really been Koka's by right. Junam and them, what the dad was establishing is that Junam and Yuhan took it from the Kai empire first, or at some point, maybe not first, they took it back, and now it's just switched hands again. So this whole by right thing, it's just Soo-won saying that, but that's not exactly the case. That's what's fascinating, is Soo-won getting personally involved in this battle. I'm like, okay, interesting. And we cut back to Yona right after that, right? And so the dragons aren't doing good. And so Yoon is like, I can't figure out what the deal is. But he's like, I'll go get some water. And then they're worried that things might be contagious. So they tell Yona to get out, and they send Hawk to go with her to like go on a walk. I love when everybody gets away and it's just the dragons talking to one another. I love it because they're like, okay, now that they're gone, we need to talk about this. It's like they've been around. It's like, even though they're the current reincarnations of the dragons, it's like they've been there for centuries talking to one another. It's so crazy. And he's like, Kija, how is your arm? And he suspects, Jaeha wonders if a new white dragon has been born. And Kija's face when he says that, he's like, because that means that he's going to die. And then he's like, no, I don't think so. He's like, I think I would know, and that's not what this feels like. And he's like, okay, that's good. And he's like, why would you suddenly bring that up? And he's like, well, and then we come to find out Jaeha is thinking about this very thing. He's like, my predecessor died when he was 27. I'm like 26 now. I'm getting close to that age. He's like, soon a new dragon will be born, and my power will wither away and I'll die. It's not far-fetched. But we don't know how long that's going to be, though, because Ao was older, right? But there's the idea that they're short-lived. And Kija's like, well... He's like, it's weird that you're talking about important things like this. And Jaeha's like, that's why I don't like talking about it. And Kija's like, well, whatever. If I die, as long as I die protecting Yona, then it doesn't matter how long I live. And Jaeha's like, well, of course you would say that. But Jaeha, as we come to find out in the bonus chapter, he saw just how precious that life could be. And he wants to cling to it. He's like he's like Garo. He wants to cling to that life. And then Yoon hears it. And this part was so sad. Yoon hearing them being like, is it really true that dragons are short-lived? And Jaeha's like, oh, shit. And he's like, it's fine. And Jaeha's like, no one knows when they're going to die. Like, anybody can die at any time. It's just the dragons are hyper-aware of their mortality. That's the crazy thing. And Yoon's like, well, yeah, I know, but... And then Kija's like, it's okay that we don't die immediately. We'll be around at least for several more years after another dragon's born. So it's not like we're going to kick the bucket immediately. But then June, when he says, I want you strange beasts to live as long as you can. Oh my God, just tears, nothing but tears. It's so sad. And Zeno looking over at them being like, And he's like, don't tell Yona what we're talking about. Okay. Yoon just getting my heart right in the feels. And that's when the wind blows. And she senses that there's a storm coming, right? And so when Jaeha comes out, up until we find out that he's sick, I thought for a minute that after they had this big conversation about life and death and them possibly not living very long, I thought Jaeha hugging her was him like trying to like relieve some of that tension and being like, I care about you, Yona. I don't want to die yet. All that stuff. But and Hawk seems to be like, what's going on? You getting close to Yona? And then we figure out that he's just sick. It's probably a combination of both, but we figure out that he's sick. It's like awesome. So yeah, so they're both sick now. Great. The mangaka's editors, a continuation from the thing with Hawk holding Kija with the glaive. I thought we'd hold it between his legs. Carrying him using the glaive, it'd be tricky to walk like that. Or he could balance it on his head. He's pretty athletic, so it seems feasible. On his head? Why? They're just trying to like make it work. So they do establish that it is a disease, and Yoon seems happy. He's like, okay, good. We know it's a disease. That means I can help figure out what to do. And Kija and Jaeha look at him, and Yona's like, but we just established that now Yoon knows that their lives are short-lived. Yona doesn't know this. But Yoon's like, okay, good. You're all not dying because you're transferring your powers. You just are literally sick. And so then Amoy comes in, and he thinks that they might have spread the sickness, and Kalgan doesn't want to admit that it's his fault. And so they all decide they're going to go leave, but then Sheena passes out because he sees the army coming, and he's collapsed. It's a big hot mess. And then that's when they announce that there's an invasion by Quokka armies to Kai. Yep. And then we cut to those flags, and the flags are of dragons. Funny that. And we have Soo-won in his beautiful armor. And he's gathered all my generals together. And then Guntae teases Kyoga. They all get ready. And then, shall we get started? And then they just start the attack. And I love that as Soo-won is coldly leading this attack to attack this province, to take back the village. As soon as he's coldly leading this attack, Yona is with the Kai people. And Amoy is like, I hope our village doesn't take any damage. The king and others in power never get hurt. It's the little people who suffer and get trampled underfoot. And that resonates with Yona. She's like, that's not fair. That, yeah, it is like the people in power, they don't suffer. But the people who are the casual citizens, They do. And so yeah, I'm actually impressed and surprised that Kusanagi does not focus on the battle for this chapter. It's just, we find out it's off screen. It's an off screen battle. We find out later what happened. The battle itself is not what is important in these chapters. What is important is what happens afterwards, the catalyst that it causes and the chain reaction it causes. That's what's important. It's not the battle itself, right? Because it gets over earlier than scheduled, right? And so then we have Kyoga, and Soo-won acknowledges Kyoga that he was a magnificent leader in battle. And Kyoga, it's like Taejun gets like the sparkly eyes for Yona, Kyoga gets the sparkly eyes for Soo-won, right? And it's like, oh, you had faith in me. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Again, there's two major differences that come from Yona and Soo-won in this volume. One is that Soo-won is waging war with the Kai Empire for reasons. But there are reasons. It's not just to protect Koka, but there's other reasons behind it too. We just don't know all of them yet. But two, whenever Kyoga's like, you had faith in me, thank you. He's like, oh, no need for that. I look forward to relying on you. And he smiles at Kyoga. When he turns around, he has that like snake or hawk face, right? He just does not look innocent at all, right? Whereas I think when Yona, there's no innocent genuineness to him relying on Kyoga. It's all for his own benefit, for his agenda. But whereas I think when Taejun thanks Yona, and Yona's like, oh, it's fine, she is being genuine. So there's a difference there. It's interesting, right? But she's worried about the dragons, and Zeno's like, not to worry, young lady. It'll be fine. They just need to rest up. Zeno doesn't tell her everything either. Zeno doesn't tell her everything that he tells the dragons. He just says, oh, when they use too much of their energy, they get exhausted. They just need to rest up. He didn't tell her about the whole palace deal. Interesting. Probably because if he did tell her, she wouldn't want to venture out. She'd want to stay close by to Kiryu Palace. This scene, though, where her and Hawk are in the tent, this is great. Because they just both just silently walk in there. They sit down. And then Yona brings it up. Coco is victorious in battle. I wonder if Soo-won attacked Kai because of the conflict with the water tribes. And that look from Hawk where he's just like... Because even though Hawk doesn't want to say it, he knows Soo-won. And he goes in this big elaborate thing of explaining why Soo-won would have attacked now. They had an alibi. They had an excuse. The forces were weakened. It's a chance for him to get his fellow tribes to be more trustworthy of him. It's a chance to prove them in battle. Like Hawk's the battle was never only about expanding the border. Exactly. And then Yona's like, you understand how Soo-won thinks, don't you? And I love that he's like, no, I don't. And I don't want to know. So Hawk's like, don't lump me up with him. No, don't compare me to him. And then Yona's like, if none of this had happened, if father had been willing to go to war, which we don't know if it'll ever would have, Hawk and Soo-won might have gone into battle together. And that shot of Hawk in the armor with the cape, he looks good. Hawk looks great next to Soo-won there, but what an AU, right? But this line, and I bet I would have simply stayed put in the palace without a care in the world. So for better or worse, whether for Soo-won's actions, for better or worse, they have shaped Yona into the woman she is now. And I would say Yona is in a better place than she was at the start of the series. The insane thing is it just came at the cost of Soo-won betraying them and killing her father. But we don't know everything, and I don't want to know. I don't want to be spoiled. And so then she says, if my father damaged our country, I want to make it right. And Hawk gets mad at that. He's like, it's not your job to atone for your father's sins. So both Yona and Hawk acknowledge that Il was not a good king. He did bad things. But Hawk's like, it's not your job to clean up his mess. I like that. He's like, no, you're not supposed to atone for his sins. And I like that Yona's just like, thanks, Hawk, for sticking up for me. And she's like, but still, I want to do the best that I can. And this is the other major difference with Yona and Soo-won. Should we only care about what happens to Koka? I'm not sure about that. I've been thinking, and she flashes back to Amoy's conversation. To the people, the real enemy is war. Even if Soo-won is, and she stumbles there, she's like, is a good king for Koka. And actually, she grips herself there. In this situation, I don't feel like siding with Koka or the Kai Empire. So there's a really cool thing there because it's really cool because it's establishing that, yeah, her dad made mistakes. He made mistakes. He did things that were not benefiting the people and they weren't good. But him not wanting to go to war might not have been a bad thing. Might not have totally been a bad thing. There were things that he did that I don't agree with and things that I do think he did wrong. But the idea of going to war as being like Gunte reveling in it and everything, I do think that Yona's realizing like going to war isn't always a great thing for anybody. It's like, because like the people there in that village, they don't care if it's Coke or Kai. They just don't want their village destroyed or their people killed. It's like, makes sense, right? And so then our poor dragons are still injured. And then Zeno shows up with the lore saying that it's Kiryu Palace is powerfully blessed by the dragon god. Other than the yellow dragon, we're not very hardy. Meaning the dragons aren't hardy creatures except for the yellow dragon, who is immortal. Your defense resistance weakens until it's like a child's. So if you get a little bit sick, you're going to get really sick. So it's like, And then Jeha's like, that's why the villages never relocated outside Koga's borders. They kept the power going, right? So it's funny. It's funny that they kept this power going, all these villages did. They didn't want to acknowledge the power, or they considered it a curse, or they hated it, or they tried to guard it away and they didn't want people to know about it, but they never wanted it gone. That's the thing. They didn't want the power gone. They just didn't want anybody to know about it. It's like, interesting. And so then, yeah, Kija's like, wow, you know a lot. You must have learned it from your village, huh? And Zeno's like, he doesn't answer the question, right? Because his village didn't tell him about it because he's the original yellow dragon. He is the village, right? And I love that Zeno's like, it's okay, just get some sleep. And so Kija thinks that there's something familiar about Zeno. And I'm wondering if it's the dragon blood connecting them all together, right? The dragon blood in them knows that it's Zeno, the yellow dragon. But Zeno recognized Soo-won. I don't want to know why, but he did. He had a reaction to him. And this line, he's like, I'm the reject of the 4 dragons, but I will absolutely protect you all. So it's like he's the dragon that got kicked out. Maybe because Zeno didn't want to fight, but he was also immortal. So it's like such a combo there, right? And he senses something's happening. So the real sad thing here is that these troops they can't accept defeat. These troops are so proud that they would rather burn the entire place to the ground than give up and let Koka rule them. They would rather just destroy it all and say screw it than to let Soo-won come in and take their kingdom back to Koka. Like, that's crazy. And you just see like this one guy, all his friends and family, like just seeing them on the battlefield dead, saying, I won't sit back and let it happen. So yeah, it's like what these people do in battle and afterwards, right? And so Kalgan feels responsibility for getting them sick. So he goes off to the other village, Kinkan, to try to get medicine. And that's when it gets attacked, right? And he escapes. The whole thing with Yona and the arrow is great, but we have a continuation here from the mangaka. My sister's reaction to seeing the earlier column. Maybe the assistants meant something else. What? Like Kija between his legs. No, not that. So it's like a picture of Hawk with Kija between his legs? No. Or he has Kija hold the glaive between his legs. That's ridiculous. Oh my god. So yeah, Yona just firing off these arrows. Our queen, she's just like, loop, loop, just firing them off. I love it. But Hawk comes in to help her. Oh my god. And then all these troops. It's just like an endless wave of troops. Oh my god. Just like an endless wave from all these villages coming. And this one guy's like, curse Koka. If Kin provinces become part of Koka, then we'll pillage and burn it all first. And him just like crying. And Yona being like, what is happening here? So much hatred and sorrow heading straight for us. And it's almost like her eyes kind of look like Sheena's, like the dragon's eyes, seeing them from a distance. I can't believe a single battle caused this. They're taking it out on people who had nothing to do with it. Yeah, the consequences of this one battle. And then Hawk, being self-sacrificing, is like, go on, Yona, I'll take care of it. It's like, come on, Hawk, no. And he's like, let me... She wants to fight with him so badly, but he's like, no. You can't fight off an army. I can. And this, oh my God, this moment where he's like, please don't cry. And she's like, I never cry over anything you'd say. And him like kissing away her tears. Husbando, get out of here. I cannot. And he's like, forgive me just for now. My God. Oh my God. Just, and so he sends her to protect Kalgan, and he just sits there with the stuff over his back. I'm like, Hawk, you husbando. And he does a pretty good job for a while, but he's still just one man, and he's not a dragon, not like a literal dragon. He's just the Thunder Beast. And so, of course, they can hear outside the tent, the dragons can, and they hear Yona saying that Hawk is fighting by himself, and he'll die if they don't rescue him. And so, of course, the dragons all go off. Of course they do. Okay, so bonus. People often ask me about Yona character birthdays. Oh, I wasn't sure how to create a calendar for this world, so I decided to do something readers would enjoy. I'm only doing the main characters for now. Hawk's birthday was already decided for a Hana to Yume campaign, but forget about that. As you can see, I've picked these dates entirely for fun. I'm totally into it. Yona is April 7th because she's Yo, 4, Na, 7. Oh, so this isn't zodiac related. It's all to do with their names. Hawk is August 9th because he's Ha, 8, and Ku, 9. Soo-won is February 7th, February 3rd, Insomnia, Fu, 2, Min, 3 day, Insomnia Day. Yoon is September 25th because it's Housewife Day of Rest. Yes. Kija is April 6th. Day of White, She 4, and Ro 6. Sheena is January 3rd, I, Hito 1, and Me 3 day. Jeha is Greenery Day, May 4th. Zeno is August 30th, Happy Sunshine Day, a day on which you make your smile as bright as the sun and feel happy. Soo-won seems like he's an insomniac, according to my sister, so I made him February 3rd. February 3rd is also Setsubun, and my birthday. So I was a bit hesitant, but I suppose it shouldn't influence my decision. Another option I had for Yoon was Genius, 10, Sa, 3, I, 1 day. But I ended up choosing Housewife Day of Rest. On the next page are the results of the character popularity poll, Hana to Yume. So none of this is like zodiac. Because I remember seeing that Yona, I think I remember somebody said Yona's birthday was April, and I was like, she's an Aries? And then I was like, her and Kija are Aries? What? But no, it's just, some mangaka choose birthdays based on the zodiac, and the character traits are usually aligned with those traits, but not Kusanagi. She just picked them, kind of like what Oda has done with One Piece. They're just random birthdays picked because of the nomenclature of the names. Fitting. But yeah, of course Hawk wins. I love that Hawk looks surprised in winning the popularity poll. He's like, me? Who, me? I love it. Of course. And then the top 10 I can see. I can see the top 10. All of our dragons and Soo-won and Taejun and Pyukyu and Yona and Yoon. I can see it. But yeah, everything's doing fine. And then the dragons come in, but they're all just slowly getting weaker and weaker. They can't fight. And then just Sheena getting impaled by the spear and Kija getting slashed. Not about it. Nope. Okay. Thanks to the anime, the people in Gigan's pirate crew from the Owl Arc have names. I've always wanted them to, so I'm delighted. It's a bit late in the game, but let me introduce you to Jeha's old friends. Oh, and there's the one with the beady eyes. Toku, he's kind and quiet, age 21. Maya, age 18, he's a hot-blooded young man. He has the bandana. Tatsu has the headband and the spiky hair. He's an enthusiastic, friendly guy. Rio, age 20, has the black hair. He acts cool, but he's hot-blooded and sentimental. And then Ruin, 46. He apparently liked Yoon. Oh, ew! A 46-year-old like Yoon? Stranger danger. Get an adult. No. There are others too, but these are the main ones. So yeah, like they're all getting slashed and impaled. Like they're not impervious to pain. They can wear out. And Sheena's gonna use his eyes, and Jeha's like, no! You'll die! And so then he passes out before he can even use them. And they don't even try to kill him at this point. They're just like, let's just go kill the villagers. And Hawk's like, and that's when Yona's like, I'm gonna fire my arrow. And Zeno says, stay back, young lady. And he goes up to fight him. And they slash him by the arm, so that slashes him from the start, right? And he's like, young lady, get to safety. And he goes to keep them. And she tells him to stop. And that's when when he got impaled, I was like, there's no way he's going to die. There's no way. He's immortal. There's no way they'd kill him off. No. I was like, they're not killing Zeno. And I was like, so he's immortal. And I was like, oh, how are we doing this? I was more like, how are we going to do this? And everybody's expressions, though. And when he took the blade off and like cut straight through him, and that's why the robes fell off. Okay, but Yona's seen her dad impaled, and now she's seen Zeno impaled. So girl, like, sparking some trauma, right? But Hak and Jaeha and all of them being like, oh, Zeno. And Yoon just looks like he's about to throw up. And just Yona looks so distraught. And her being like, telling them to back off and wishing she were stronger so she could protect him. And that's when Zeno's like, don't cry. He's like, Zeno was right. Hiryu Palace is too far away. Healing takes longer than it should. So if they were in the palace, it would probably be like instant, right? Oh, buddy. Okay. It's all right. The yellow dragon can't die. Oh my gosh. Yep. No. Oh my god. Here we go. And Yoon's like, oh my god. He's like, as I'm the dragon who was born to be your shield. As long as the yellow dragon shields you, no one can ever harm you. I love that shot of his just face. Oh. So we talked about the sword and the shield. Talk about the sword and the shield. There's lots of options. Like, if Zeno is the shield to protect the king, which is Yona, are the dragons the sword? Like, the dragons as a whole, a collective, the sword? Is Hak the sword? Is Soo-won the sword? Maybe that's why Zeno recognized him, because he's like, oh, I'm the sword, I'm the shield, you're the sword. So maybe Soo-won is the sword for Yona. I don't know. I don't want to be spoiled. I want to find out on my own as we read through this, but interesting. Zeno being immortal. It all makes sense now. I know what's crazy is Zeno calls himself Zeno because all these years he stayed alive, right? And so in that vein, he could be calling himself Zeno to remind himself of who he is, because he's lived so long so he doesn't forget. He just starts calling himself Zeno so he won't forget his own name. There's that. But if you notice, he doesn't call the other dragons by their actual names. He says yellow dragon, green dragon, white dragon. He doesn't call them by their names. And if he's the original, he's known that these dragons have died and been reborn over and over again. So I'm sure that to help him not be traumatized anymore, he doesn't call them by their name. He doesn't get to know them by their personal names. He just knows them by their dragon names, so that when they die, he won't be as distraught and sad about it. That's freaking heartbreaking if that's the case, right? That's heartbreaking. Oh, I'm so ready for volume 18 now. I'm so ready. Yes. Okay. But we did have a bonus chapter about old Garo, who was the green dragon before Jaeha, who was only 27 when he died, and was 15 when he turned, when his power went to the others. But Jaeha is very subconscious about his leg, and I feel like Garo helped make him self-conscious about it, and talking about how they're just viewed as diseased. It's really sad. And Garo kind of has a look similar to Jaeha, but a little different. He looks like a snake. Garo has a very snake-like dragon face. Like, his eyes are very slitty, and he has like a very like slitty mouth, like a smile. But it's so sad because they still treat him awful, and they barely feed him. His only job is just to keep Jaeha from leaving. It's so sad. And what I like is that him and Ao are polar opposites in terms of Ao wanted to die. He wanted the power transfer so he could die, and he was happy when he died. Garo didn't want to die. He wanted to keep living. And I feel like that strive, that idea to keep living has passed down to Jaeha too, right? And that's why he gets so sad about Kija and the others. And so then he just beats up Jaeha because he gets so mad. And despite it all, he's like, I want to kill you. And Jeha says that he hates him, but when I hear you scream, my heart feels like it'll burst. He's like, he's the last person I'd ever want to know. So I feel like the blood inside of them, it connects all the dragons together. And Jeha is feeling this compassion towards Garo, and it's because of the blood, right? Or at least that's what Garo's thinking. And he's like, I love this kid, and I can't tell him it's because of the blood that I do. Or maybe it's not. But it's so sad. Then bonus chapter. This is a story about Jeha's childhood, although in practice his predecessor, Garo, seems to be the protagonist. I wanted to spend a little more time drawing it. Jeha likes beautiful things. He likes his clothes and his powers, but he doesn't really like the way his dragon leg looks. He rarely removes his shoes, and he keeps his leg wrapped up, the same way Kija always wraps his arm. Kija, on the other hand, doesn't dislike his dragon arm, but he keeps it wrapped up because the people in his village, especially his granny, taught him not to let anyone find out about it. So it's funny. You have Kija, who followed the rules and kept everything hidden because that's what the village wanted. And in Jeha's village, they wanted to keep the powers a secret as well, but Jeha kept wanting to be free and disobeying those rules. So look at that. It's like, it's the green dragon has always tied this like sense of jumping away and flying away to freedom, right? But God, it's so sad. And Jeha's like, you're not a bad person. You never hurt the people in your village. And we cut back to him being 15. And so I wonder if the whole thing tying to when they lose their powers, when the powers transferred to a new dragon, I wonder if it's tied to a sense of a lack of purpose and feeling like they don't have an existence. Because he said he'd always waited for the Red King to come, but they never did, and they lost hope. Hope had vanished, and they said, I see, I'm truly unwanted, and my existence suddenly felt empty. And at that moment, the new dragon was born. So I feel like maybe the key is, as long as they feel like they have purpose and an existence, whether it's to protect the other king or not, as long as that doesn't waver, then maybe that extends their life a little bit. I don't know. Maybe him having no sense of purpose shortened his lifespan, but the little tiny baby Jeha with the little dragon feet, I'm sorry, but what? And even I'm with him. I'm with Garo being like, his dragon leg's so small. That was so freaking cute. I can't. The tiny dragon foot, it's over. It's done. And then Jeha being like, come with me, Garo, into the sky. Fly with me. Here's the thing. This is heartbreaking. Garo's backstory. It's heartbreaking, and the fact that he can't fly with Jeha even if he wants to, and he dies to let Jeha get away. Like, I was like, my heart was broken throughout this. But if we get to Zeno's backstory, I don't know if I'm going to be able to hold it in, y'all. I'm seeing Zeno's backstory. They've just done like backstory after backstory, and it's gotten sadder and sadder. Like Sheena's backstory was really freaking sad. Kija's backstory was really sad. This is heartbreaking. And then now we have Zeno left. It's gonna just trample my soul. I just know it already, right? But Garo died to let him go. And he tried to make Jeha feel like, he tried to make Jeha hate him so he'd leave. He's like, who'd want to go with you? I hate you. It'll be a relief to have you gone. Don't you ever come back, you idiot. Like, don't come back here. And just Jeha looking back at him like he's going to cry. It's like Jeha knew in that moment. He's like, oh, yeah, you're letting me go. So good. So good. And then him just asking the green dragon, like, to protect him. I wanted to see him a little longer. Oh my God. This was amazing. This series hasn't missed. This manga hasn't missed. This volume was amazing. We've got Zeno. We know he's immortal. He can't die. Okay, we're gonna probably get backstory. Here's the thing, they ended with chapter 99. And I've got my little notes here, my little note thing. And my notes thing says Yona, there's 3 OVAs, 1 OVA, and then 2 back-to-back OVAs. The 2 OVAs are with volume 18, chapter 101, page 22 to chapter 105. So, we did, what chapters did we do in here? We did chapters, pages, find on here. We did chapter 95, 96, 97, 98, 99. We did 5 chapters. So if we did 100, 101, 102, 103, 104 to 105. Okay, so it would carry over from volume 18 and 19. Okay. So I don't know. I'll probably ask Patreon and probably ask the Discord if I should read chapter 100 and then watch the OVAs. I'm going to watch the OVAs before reading the manga chapters because the OVAs are the animated version. That's the reaction. But I'm going to ask Discord if I should read chapter 100 first and then read the OVAs and then read the manga, or if I should start with the OVAs and then read chapter 100 on. I don't know if... I feel like that chapter 100, it's the 100th chapter of Yona of the Dawn. I feel like it's going to be kind of important. Especially since we just revealed that about Zeno. But, this was amazing. I love this volume. And now I'm super hyped up for volume 18. So please don't spoil me. No hints. No being like, just wait till this volume. Don't tell me any of that stuff. I want it to all be a surprise. But I'm very curious to know your thoughts about this volume, about our boy Zeno at this point. At this point, like when you first read this chapter, were you like, or like, yes, confirmed? But I'm very curious to know what y'all think. Thank you so much for watching this reaction discussion. I hope you all enjoyed it. But yeah, next time we're going to be watching the OVAs, the other 2, and reading volume 18. I'm pretty excited. So in the meantime, have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Yona of the Dawn. Bye.